Buckle up, because today's deep dive is gonna be a wild one. We're talking about a seemingly perfect family, a shocking double homicide, and twists and turns that'll leave you reeling.
Sounds intense.
Oh, it is. The source for this one is a YouTube video from that chapter titled Killer Au Pair Lies to Police at Horrifying Crime Scene Juliana Magalhães.
Ah, that chapter. Always a good source for some crazy true crime stories.
Right. So this story takes place in Herndon, Virginia. You know, a quiet, affluent suburb outside D.C., the kind of place you wouldn't expect this kind of thing to happen.
Yeah, makes it all the more unsettling when it does right.
Yeah,
Like this peaceful facade gets totally shattered.
exactly. So let's get into it. We've got Brendan and Christine Banfield. Seemingly the perfect couple with a 4-year-old daughter. Brendan worked as an IRS criminal investigator.
Whoa, hold on. An IRS investigator. That's kind of ironic given what unfolds.
Right, you can't make this stuff up. Then there's Christine, a beloved pediatric nurse, super involved in the community.
Sure, yeah.
You know, organizing play dates, volunteering, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds like she was really dedicated to her family and community.
Totally. And then into this seemingly perfect family enters Juliana Magalhães, their young au pair from Brazil. She came to the U.S. for a better life. Pretty common for au pairs.
Makes sense. A lot of them come looking for new opportunities.
Yeah. And the Banfields actually had a great experience with another Brazilian au pair before, so they were happy to welcome Juliana into their home.
So it's not like she was walking into a hostile environment or anything?
Nope, not at all.
Yep.
Okay, so picture this. It's February 24th, 2023, a seemingly ordinary Friday morning until a chilling 911 call comes in from the Banfield residence.
Okay, I'm hooked. What happened?
At first, it's just a hang-up. Then Brendan calls back, claiming he just shot a man who was stabbing his wife.
Oh, wow. That escalated quickly.
Yeah, talk about a chaotic scene. When the police arrive, they find Christine and a man named Joseph Ryan, both dead. Christine had been brutally stabbed multiple times, and Joseph had 2 bullet wounds.
So many questions immediately.
Ah,
Was this a break-in? Who was this Joseph Ryan guy? What was he doing there?
exactly. Now, Juliana's initial story seemed to support Brendan's version of events. She said she'd taken their daughter to the zoo that morning but forgot the packed lunch.
Okay.
And when she returned, she saw an unfamiliar car and a strange man entering the house. So she called Brendan, obviously worried.
Seems reasonable, but I'm
Yeah.
guessing there's more to it.
Oh, yeah. Even in this early account, there were some inconsistencies that raised red flags for investigators. Like, why would Brendan, being an experienced IRS investigator, tell Juliana to go get a second gun if he already had one?
That is strange.
And then there's this unexplained 15-minute gap between the 911 calls. Something just wasn't adding up.
Definitely suspicious.
Oh.
Okay, so let's talk about this, Josie. The guy Brendan claimed he shot in self-defense.
Yeah.
What do we know about him?
So Joseph was described as an old-fashioned guy, an animal lover, and get this, an active member of the online fetish community, FetLife.
FetLife. Wow, okay, didn't see that coming. So we're going down the rabbit hole of online fetishes now.
Oh yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. The police start digging into Joseph's activity on FetLife and discover he'd been messaging a user named Anastasia9 for about a month before the murders.
Anastasia 9. Okay, what kind of conversations are we talking about here?
Their messages revolved around rough sex, bondage, even blood play. And you want to know the real kicker?
Hit me with it.
The profile picture for Anastasia9 was Christine Banfield.
No way. Are you serious? So the wife was leading a secret double life online.
It seems that way. Which begs the question, did a virtual encounter turn deadly, or was something even more sinister going on?
This is getting crazy. I can't wait to hear what happens next.
Well, you're in for a wild ride. Remember I mentioned Brendan worked for the IRS?
Yeah.
Turns out he and Juliana had a little side project of their own. A secret romantic relationship?
Hold on. An affair with the au pair. This just keeps getting more complicated.
Oh, it does. And this wasn't just a casual fling. The police found evidence that things were serious between them. Trips to the gun range, talks about a future together, the whole shebang.
Wow. So instead of choosing the messy but legal route of divorce, they allegedly came up with a far more sinister plan.
You got it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We'll dive deeper into their alleged plot and how it all unraveled in our next segment.
I'm on the edge of my seat already. This is intense. It's hard to believe someone could be so cold and calculating, especially someone in a position of authority like Brendan.
It's chilling, right? Like, what drove them to this point? Was it just pure self-interest or something else?
Well, the investigators think Brendan, being a criminal investigator himself, likely planned the whole thing.
So he used his knowledge of the legal system to his advantage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He knew how to manipulate evidence, plant seeds of doubt, the whole 9 yards,
Yeah.
and he used that knowledge to try and frame Joseph and protect himself and Juliana.
Wow, that's just twisted. But how did they even bring Joseph into this? It seems so random.
Remember the Anastasia 9 profile on FetLife? The police believe Brendan created that himself.
Wait, so he catfished this guy using his own wife's photos and everything? That's
Yeah.
messed up.
It really is. And it shows just how premeditated this was. He basically turned Christine's secret desires into a weapon against her.
Unbelievable. Okay, so let's talk about the actual murders. What's the theory on how it all went down that morning?
Based on the evidence and what Juliana told the police, they think Brendan probably shot Joseph first, maybe as soon as he walked in the door.
And what about those 2 bullet wounds?
Right. They suggest Juliana might have fired a shot too. Maybe under pressure from Brendan to make it look like there was a struggle.
Part of the whole self-defense story they were trying to sell? But if that's the case, when did Christine die?
That's the big question. And honestly, investigators are still trying to figure that out for sure. But based on how bad her injuries were and the timing of those 911 calls, they think Brendan might have already killed her before Joseph even arrived.
You're saying he set Joseph up, lured him there knowing Christine was already dead.
It's a horrifying thought, but that's what the prosecution believes. It paints Brendan as a master manipulator, someone who planned every step of this to get away with murder.
It's hard to wrap your head around that level of calculation, but what ultimately led to their downfall? If they planned it so carefully, how did they get caught?
Well, even the best-laid plans have flaws. Remember those inconsistencies in Juliana's initial story? The missing lunch, the gap between the calls, those little details, along with forensic evidence and cell phone records, started to unravel their whole story.
So the devil was in the details.
You could say that. The police started to see through the cracks. And as things unraveled, Juliana decided to cooperate with authorities.
Probably weighed down by guilt or maybe fear.
I'd imagine.
Mhm.
So Juliana gets arrested in October 2023, about 8 months after the murders. Brendan, though, he manages to evade capture for almost a year. They finally catch up to him in September 2024.
Did he really think he could get away with it?
Who knows? Maybe he thought his knowledge of the system would protect him. Or maybe he just underestimated how determined the police were to find the truth. Either way, his attempt to escape justice failed.
And Juliana's cooperation was a big part of that, right? She agreed to testify against him.
Exactly. She took a plea deal. Plead guilty to manslaughter for Joseph's death, a lesser charge in exchange for her testimony. It's a pretty common strategy to get one accomplice to turn on the other.
Makes sense. So what about Brendan? Did he try to defend himself, tell his side of the story?
Nope. He chose to remain silent, plead the fifth, refused to answer any questions.
Wow, that's a bold move. Risky, too. Silence can easily be seen as an admission of guilt, especially in front of a jury.
Definitely. So now it's all coming down to Juliana's testimony.
Yeah.
Her word against the evidence the prosecution's gathered.
It's a high-stakes battle for sure. And in all this legal drama, it's easy to forget the real victim here. The Banfield's 4-year-old daughter left orphaned by the very people who were supposed to love and protect her.
It's a tragedy on so many levels. It's a reminder that these crimes have ripple effects. The trial that little girl is facing is unimaginable.
It's heartbreaking, and it brings up another question. What could possibly push someone to do something so horrific? Was it greed, lust, some twisted need for control?
It's a question that's plagued humanity for centuries. In this case, it seems like a toxic cocktail of ambition, desire, and a complete lack of empathy.
And we can't forget the role of technology in all this. The fact that Brendan was able to use FetLife to manipulate Joseph adds another layer of complexity to this whole thing.
Absolutely. It highlights the dark side of the digital world, where anonymity can be weaponized and the lines between fantasy and reality can become dangerously blurred.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. Let's recap what we've learned about this truly disturbing case. We started with a picture-perfect family living the American dream. But beneath the surface, there was infidelity, deceit, and a shocking double homicide.
Brendan, with his knowledge of the law, concocted an elaborate plan to eliminate his wife and frame an innocent man, all while maintaining this facade of a grieving husband.
And Juliana, the au pair, got caught up in his web of lies. Eventually, she broke down and agreed to cooperate with the authorities, revealing the truth about their twisted plot.
And it was those seemingly small details, the inconsistencies, the forensic evidence, that ultimately unraveled their carefully constructed facade.
It's a story that's left us all with more questions than answers. A stark reminder that even in the most idyllic settings, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. And that the digital world, while offering connection and opportunity, can also be a breeding ground for deception and manipulation. It's terrifying to think that something as simple as an algorithm could be used to facilitate something so horrific.
It really makes you think about the unintended consequences of these online platforms,
Right?
right? Like they're designed to connect people,
Yeah.
but what happens when those connections turn dangerous?
Exactly. And in this case, it seems like FetLife played a pretty significant role in Brendan's alleged plan. You mentioned earlier that these platforms could be doing more to protect their users. What did you have in mind?
Well, for starters, I think stronger content moderation is crucial. These sites need to be proactive about identifying and removing harmful content, especially anything that could put users at risk.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But with so much content being generated constantly, how can they realistically monitor everything?
It's a tough challenge for sure. Maybe artificial intelligence could play a role, developing algorithms that can flag suspicious activity or content that violates their terms of service.
AI could definitely be helpful, but it's not a foolproof solution, right? There's always the risk of false positives or things slipping through the cracks.
Absolutely. Human oversight is still essential. Maybe a combination of AI and human moderators could be the most effective approach.
And what about age verification? Could that help prevent minors from accessing these sites?
It's definitely worth considering. A lot of these fetish sites have age restrictions, but how effectively are they being enforced? Stricter verification processes could help ensure that only adults are accessing this kind of content.
But then there's the issue of privacy. People might be hesitant to share personal information to verify their age.
That's a valid concern. It's a delicate balance between protecting users and respecting their privacy.
And what about the users themselves? Can they do anything to protect themselves from being exploited or manipulated online?
Absolutely. Awareness is key. Being aware of the potential risks, being cautious about who you interact with and what information you share, and most importantly, trusting your gut. If something feels off, it probably is.
So we're talking about a combination of platform responsibility and individual vigilance.
Exactly. It's a shared responsibility. We can't rely solely on these platforms to keep us safe. We need to be proactive about protecting ourselves as well.
Well said. It's a sobering reminder that the digital world, while offering so much potential, also has its dark corners. And as we navigate this new frontier, it's crucial that we do so with both caution and awareness.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And it's cases like this that really highlight the need for ongoing conversation and action. We need to keep talking about these issues, exploring solutions, and working together to create a safer online experience for everyone.
This has been a heavy, deep dive for sure. We've gone from a picture-perfect family to a shocking double homicide, a twisted plot, and the dark side of online communities.
It's a story that reminds us that things aren't always as they seem, and that beneath the surface of even the most seemingly idyllic lives, darkness can lurk.
We've explored the complex role technology played in this case and grappled with the ethical implications of online platforms and the algorithms that drive them.
And ultimately, we're left with more questions than answers. Questions about the human capacity for both good and evil, the fragile nature of trust, and the ever-evolving landscape of the digital world.
But even amidst the darkness, there's a glimmer of hope. The dedication of the investigators who tirelessly pursued the truth, the courage of Juliana in coming forward, and the resilience of a community determined to heal and move forward.
And for those listening, we hope this deep dive has sparked some important conversations. Conversations about online safety, about the power of algorithms, and about the importance of vigilance and awareness in our increasingly interconnected world.
So as we wrap up this episode, we encourage you to keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a safer, more responsible digital future. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.